million transactions per day, that's correct?
1.5 million.
Okay. When I was very young, he was the head of the French delegation, the French group for standardization of C++, and when I showed up in '97, very young, he didn't tell me away, he didn't know I'm coming, and he was very, very successful as a leader, and he organized the 98th ISO standard meeting in France, which led to the first ISO C++ standard. And I think most of the people, most of the community still remembers Sophia Antipolis, and about 5 years ago he asked for another meeting in C++. We tried to match, but of course, it's very hard to beat Vincent. He's going to talk about implementation of C++ and uses of C++, and please welcome Vincent Lextrait.
Thank you. What Bjarne didn't say is that I was planning to hire him at the point that Bjarne proposed him a job, and I told him you can go. So yes, Amadeus is not a very famous brand. They paid my trip to come here, so I owe them a few words before I start. We are a travel technology company. We are the leader in the world. If you've heard about Sabre, not very far away from here, we are a similar type of company. We process 1.5 billion transactions a day. The last time I checked, Google was processing 3 billion. So we are in the same magnitude of problems, very highly distributed applications. We process up to 170,000 messages a second. So it's pretty high. And before anybody asks, we are using C++ extensively. I should say that we are using maybe C++ at the level of 80% of what we do, and the remainder is shared between a variety of technologies. When I was proposed to come over here, I thought of discussing very fancy things, something like the relationship between C++ and 1951 Rice's theorem, and lots of very fancy considerations. And I realized that my PhD was a bit, I got it long ago, and I've been working for too long in the industry to avoid being ridiculous. So I've tried to come and talk about a more mundane topic, which is the place of C++ in familiar applications. Some of you have probably already Googled the programming languages beacon on Google and found a page. I'm going to talk about this page. I am the author of this page. It's a laundry list, maybe a boring laundry list, of applications, Microsoft Office, Facebook, Oracle database, and so on. And it tells what are the major programming languages they use. The reason why I built this page is because, out of frustration, not finding this in Wikipedia at the time, and I will explain why it has changed a little bit, I decided to do it myself. I had a part of this knowledge in my head. I've never been writing this onto a page, and some of the information was not readily available. Why isn't it readily available? It's because not all these pieces of software are open source. Facebook is not open source, for instance. So it's closed source, and in order to build that list, I could not go to Wikipedia. It's not readily available. So I had to rely on links. I'm talking about something like WikiLeaks. So I know a big number of people in the technology industry. So I rely on information coming from insiders or from people who have been leading the companies and tell me what types of programming languages they use to do this or that product. Of course, some of this is wrong, and I work like a journalist. I verify my sources, I cross-check, I evaluate the quality of my sources. So when I'm going to switch to this page, please don't jump on your seat if you find things that are wrong. There are certainly a few things that are wrong. Alex Devanov, for instance, told me that there is a small glitch in the page. If you find a mistake, please come to me and I will fix it. And I will not quote you, I guarantee anonymity. Let me switch to the page. So it's actually a community development, except that I am the one controlling what's happening. And I receive all sorts of contributions. For instance, don't worry if you can't read, that's very normal. I'm going to comment it. you see there are some bullets, so solid bullets, saying that this is a major programming language used in this product. Empty bullets saying that it's a stable or declining technology, and some arrows saying that it's going into that direction. Because all this is also moving. This is why it tends to become false after a while, because each of the people developing these products are actually changing their strategies. So the first thing I'm going to do is to ask you to have a look at this column. I'm going to scroll. So, okay. So you see there are lots of dots in this column. A few red dots, the red dot meaning that this product has died, disappeared, and was using that technology when it died. I thought this was of interest. So what is this column? This column is C++. So you can see already that C++ is extensively used across familiar applications. So you may ask me what I call familiar applications. So I am biased here. Of course, I have selected what I think is relevant, what is interesting. But I have tried also to select things that are from any kind of origin. You will find in the list, for instance, software for remotes. You will find software for GPS. You will find lots of different things. So I'm going to try commenting all this little by little. Starting, for instance, with operating systems. So here I'm listing Microsoft Windows, which used to use extensively in the old times Assembler and C, which is now using extensively C++. Linux, which traditionally, like all Unixes, has been developed using C. Mac OS, which is a mix of three technologies, C, C++, and Objective-C. And Sun Solaris, C, HP Unix, C, Google Chrome OS, which is C and C++. So, of course, these types of products are so sophisticated that there are a few other technologies. I'm listing here a simplified list of the technologies they use. Now, operating systems for mobiles, Symbian OS, which used to be the leading operating system for mobiles, which is almost dead now, use a little bit of assembler and uses extensively C++. Google Android is using C and a little bit of C++, and the apps are using Java. The user interface is done in Java. BlackBerry, if you have a BlackBerry, you may be aware that the applications are done in Java. You may have concluded that the operating system is Java. It's wrong. The operating system of the BlackBerry is C++, and the applications are Java. Kindle OS, C, Apple iPhone, iPod Touch, and iPad OS, C, C++, and Objective-C. Now, graphical layers. The Windows UI is essentially C++. It's a little bit changing because there are attempts to put more C# in this, and I will come back to this. macOS UI, Aqua is C++, GNOME is C and a little bit of C++, KDE is C++. Among the desktop search solutions, Google Desktop Search is C++, Microsoft Windows Desktop Search is C++, and Beagle, which is now defunct, was a C# application. Coming back, I realized I forgot to say on Microsoft Windows that there was an attempt on Windows for Mobile to put some C# in Windows for Mobile. For instance, the virtual keyboard was attempted to be developed in C#, and it was deemed too slow to remain in the release, so it was later replaced by C++. Office products, Microsoft Office, same thing as Windows, basically used to use Assembler and C, and now is mostly C++. There was a small attempt to include some C# in Microsoft Office a few years back. I don't know if it has been kept. If the Microsoft people in the room can tell me, I would be very, very happy. Apache OpenOffice, which used to be Sun OpenOffice, and before that, which was from Star Division, is C++ and a little bit of Java. Surprisingly enough, Sun has never been trying to convert all this to Java. Maybe because there was a previous attempt by Corel. Corel Office was moved to Java, entirely moved to Java. It was extremely slow. If you remember that product, it was abandoned in August 97 and moved to C++. Adobe Systems, Acrobat Reader, Distiller is also C++. Now, in the relational database systems, Oracle database, so a little bit of assembler, of course, a little bit of C, a little bit of Java, and essentially C++. By the way, you will see that it is corroborated by Wikipedia, and before I wrote this table, it was not in Wikipedia, and you will understand why. MySQL, C++, DB2, a little bit of assembler, C, and a little bit of C++. Microsoft SQL Server, same thing as Office, assembler a little bit, C a little bit, and then C++. IBM Informatics, essentially C. SAP DB, because SAP has also a database, is C++. Among the web browsers, also an interesting story. Internet Explorer is C++. Mozilla Firefox is C++. What was interesting is what happened before Mozilla Firefox. So Netscape had a Netscape Navigator. It used to be C. It was moved to Java, and there was a very interesting article by a professor from MIT called Michael Kusumano. You need to have a subscription to ACM, an online subscription to ACM to read this article. And it explained that it was extremely slow, and eventually Mozilla was created and Java was completely abandoned. Safari is C++. It's using WebKit, which is a C++ framework. Google Chrome, which is using as well WebKit, that's the C++ framework, and the V8 JavaScript engine, which is entirely written in C++ as well. An interesting case is Sun Hot Java. Sun was very interested to develop a web browser using Java because they had applets at the time, and in 1999 they stopped it, and it was extremely slow browser. Opera is written in C++, and Opera Mini is an interesting case. It's the browser you may install on your smartphone, and it contains both Java and C++. Some people believe that it's all Java. It's not true. It is all Java on the smartphone, and the rendering and the, let's say, intelligence is on the server side. In essence, they have moved the browser to the server side, the C++ browser to the server side, and in order to be present on the smartphone, they have a Java proxy. Mosaic, which has disappeared, was in C. Mail clients, Microsoft Outlook is C++, Lotus Notes is Java. And you can have, if you have been using Lotus Notes, you may have run into this. Development environment, Microsoft Visual Studio, very interesting case as well, because it contains both C++ and C#. C# was adopted, if I remember well, in 2010, on Visual Studio 2010. It's still there in 2011. It is doing the user interface, so the GUI part of Visual Studio is C#, and everything else is C++. I hear that from my contacts, my informers, that the speed of Visual Studio has been greatly affected by the presence of C# in Visual Studio. Eclipse is entirely Java, but interestingly enough, at the occasion of Eclipse, the group has built a GUI layer called SWT, because Swing, the graphical layer that was prevalent in the Java industry before that, was too slow. So SWT is actually a thin layer of Java on top of native code, and that native code is, guess what, usually C and C++. Virtual machines, Microsoft.NET, CLR, C++, Java Virtual Machine, C++, and C and C++ actually. Of course, there is a layer of Java and a layer of pure .NET code in these implementations. In the ERPs, SAP is C and C++ and ABAP. So let me explain this. The core, the runtime of SAP is C and C++. The products are developed using this weird language, which is ABAP, which is a peculiar language by SAP. And ABAP is used to describe the business logic, and then it gets translated by a processor it gets translated to, guess what, C and C++. So at the end, what you are running is essentially C++ code. Oracle PeopleSoft, when it was bought by Oracle, it was C++, and Oracle is moving it to Java. And there is also a specific language called People Code, which is used to configure and program business logic. And Oracle e-business suite is Java as well. Business objects is C++. Graphics editors, Adobe Photoshop is C++. The GIMP is C, and there is some Perl. Among search engines, I've listed only one. I have little information on the other ones. The search engine by Google is a little bit of assembler. I guess I should mention C as well, but it's essentially C++. And in the websites, the familiar websites where you are shopping or looking for information, eBay has moved from C++ in 2002 to Java. PayPal is C++. Amazon, here I'm not completely fair to Java. There is a great deal of C++ and also a great deal of Java. Facebook is C++ and PHP, so let me comment this. Facebook used to be only PHP. PHP, by the way, is what? PHP is implementing using C++, and it's running libraries that are usually C and C++. But the business logic in Facebook was coded using PHP. Recently, a couple of years back, Facebook has developed a translator from PHP to C++. This translator is called HipHop, and at this occasion, there is plenty of information on the web on the topic. At this occasion, they were able to reduce their data center by a factor of 2, which is quite significant. YouTube is written in Python, surprisingly enough. Among the compilers and interpreters, Microsoft Visual C++ is C++, Visual Basic is C++, Visual C# is C++, but in the case of C#, there is a research project which has implemented a C# compiler written in C#, and there is information on the web on this. GCC is C. I guess that Gabby can comment this. It's slowly evolving towards C++. It's compiled using C++, if I recollect correctly. Java C, the Sun Java compiler, is done in Java. Perl is done in C, and PHP is done in C. I said C++ earlier. 3D Engine, DirectX, C++, OpenGL in C. Web servers, Apache is in C, a little bit of C++. Microsoft IIS is essentially C++. Mail servers, Microsoft Exchange Server, it used to be a little bit of C, is now more and more C++. Postfix is in C. HTML server is in C++. Apache Jet is in Java. I'm going to comment here among the Web 2.0 things, if you mean something, that MediaWiki is PHP, TWiki is Perl, Google Blogger, I don't know if somebody knows, it would be very welcome to add some information on this. Google Wave, interesting case with Google Wave. Google Wave is using the tool which is WIT. WIT is a translator from Java to JavaScript to simplify. It was started in August 2010. It used Java on the server side. I assume that it is using Bigtable, and Bigtable would be C or C++, but it's essentially on the server side it was Java, and on the client side it was Java turned into JavaScript. And Flickr is PHP. DVD authoring, Neo Berliner C++, K3B C++, multimedia players, Winamp C++, Microsoft Windows Media Player C++, Apple iPod software C++, would you believe it? In the peer-to-peer software, EMU is C++, MuTorrent is C++, Azure is Java. In the GPS systems, TomTom is C++, Hertz, Neverlast is C++, Garmin is C++, and there is an interesting one called Motorola Viamoto, which disappears in June 2007. If you have been renting a Davis car before June 2007, you probably had this Motorola cell phone which was showing an arrow. It was really a horrible thing. It was actually a Java implementation, and Motorola was selling it as a kind of franchise to a variety of current providers. From a functionality standpoint, it was absolutely terrible. It was stopped in 2007. Last thing, I included also universal remotes because there are some universal remotes that are computers, very much like the iPad and small. Logitech has had two remotes. One is the Harmony 1000, which is now a dead product, and now it has the Harmony 1100. It's interesting because the 1000 used to be a, I guess, a Windows CE core on top a Java GUI. It was stopped in 2009, and now they have the Harmony 1100, and they have replaced the Java GUI by a Flash GUI. It's not included here, but anybody knows what Flash is written with? C++. Exactly. Let me show you a few things on who is accessing and how many people access the programming languages beacon. So here you see the Google Analytics page for 1 month, and you see that in between 50 and 100 people are as crazy as I am with the same compulsive behavior of trying to know what are the programming languages which are used for such and such applications. So between 50 and 100 per day, which is pretty big, I think. I didn't know that there were so many people interested by the same thing. Here, Herb has been blogging about the page. You see the effect. It reached 11,500 hits during 24 hours. Pretty big. Not yet 1 transaction per second, but close to it. Now, the other interesting piece of information is where are the people who are interested by this page? Where are the people interested by this type of information? Where will I find people similar to me and where I should go for holidays? You're maybe going to be a bit surprised. Here's the map. So you see that I received a lot of hits from Spain. Lots of hits from China, and not so many from India. You can draw any type of conclusion. Maybe they wonder there a little bit more than others how things are made. Lots of hits, no surprise, from the US and from Alaska. Maybe because actually it's colored the same way US and Alaska, I guess. I was talking about Oracle database and the fact that now it's mentioning C and C++. Before that page, it was not written. Now that programming languages beacon exists, it's written because this article on Wikipedia is referring to the page. So if you go to Oracle database, you will see, you don't see it here, I barely see it on my screen. At the top right, you see C, C++, and there's a reference, and that reference is actually to the programming languages beacon. It's funny because the page itself, the way I maintain it, is not compatible with Wikipedia, because I cannot find this information readily on the internet, so I have a different way to obtain this information. But now Wikipedia is linking my page in many articles, hundreds of articles in the various Wikipedias in the world. So, this is it. I hope you found this interesting. You will have concluded that C++ is absolutely everywhere, and chances are that the people who prefer another technology are using routinely C++ without knowing it. One thing I could comment before somebody thinks of a question is why it is like this. And of course, there are lots of considerations we can make on the qualities and virtues of C++ from an engineering standpoint and so on. There is one I would like to make, which is linked to the pressure of competition. In most of the cases I've shown here, there is a very intense pressure, competitive pressure. And when there is a very intense competitive pressure, user experience matters, and users have choice. So when user experience in terms of performance, response time is better, they will usually switch to something which is performing better. Also, when user experience is identical, users will switch to the solution that provides more functionalities because users are hungry in terms of functionality. So this is, I believe, where C++ plays. Questions?
I assume that when you present or talk about this, many people will be very surprised.
Yes.
So why do you think the perception is different?
I'll give you one example. I heard in my company many people saying that Microsoft Office had been entirely recoded in C# by people who like C#, of course.
But that's not true, is it?
And that's not true. That's not true. I don't even know whether there is some C# in Microsoft Office. I'm not completely sure.
The next version is going to be a nice pop-up exception, which is definitely shows it's managed code.
Okay. Maybe to come back to what Alex was saying this morning, I think C++ is a difficult language. It's not a language for casual programming. I think Bjarne will not disagree with that statement. But the thing is, when you have the muscle of Microsoft, the muscle of Google, or muscle of Oracle, you have the ability to spend the money to attract the right developers and to develop the right solutions that deliver the right user experience. Linux is no exception. For the exact same reason that we are doing C++. So it comes as a surprise because actually you hear a lot about other programming languages, but the real world applications are actually using something different that is taught than in the university usually.
Bjarne?
Is there any areas that you wish you knew the answer for so you can add to this?
Yes, Blogger. I don't know how Blogger is done, the blogging tool by Google. It's not used extensively, but it's something missing in the list. There are a few other ones, yes. Maybe I could add at the very beginning of the table a list of things that I'm looking for. Sometimes the information is available on the internet, and I don't even know that it's there. I was very surprised, for instance, that Microsoft is publishing a lot on the internals of what they do, and users send me a lot of information, pointers and blogs and so on.
I don't know the answer for Blogger.
Okay.
But for what it's worth, one thing you did not mention is scientific software for large experimental physics collaborations.
Yes.
20 years ago, the answer was entirely Fortran, but now that's moving more towards C++.
Okay. Okay. I will make sure that I include this.
You should be more specific.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did your sources tell you any information about some other metrics of those projects, like, I don't know, lines of code or...
No, I maintain, I've not made a page yet on this because all this is borderline legal. I think nobody will sue me because actually you could find probably this information somewhere, or I could argue it was somewhere on the web some time ago. Something which is illegal is actually to say what is the size of development teams behind things like this. It's a very, very, very interesting piece of information. I have information for a number of these things, but I don't dare to put it.
So I have a question. On the map, the hits, big hits from Spain in Europe, and nowhere else. I mean,
No.
The French know everything.
Yes, actually there are hints, but it was so pale, because there are not so many, so pale that you could not see it. But actually when you look at the entire world and you try to spot all the cities that have actually made requests, it's all red. It's really all across the place that people are accessing this. Even in very remote places, Ireland and Greenland, that people do access this page. It's very scattered across the world. Yes?
I conclude therefore that all Europe proxy through Spain.
Yes.
Do you have any idea about the level C++, the style C++ you're using? Is it a better C? Is it a...
Yes. So it's actually in the introduction of this page, you could argue that C code could be compiled with C++ with minor modifications. And conversely, some people claiming they do C++ are actually doing a subset which is very close to C. What I've written here tries to be an approximation of reality. So when I say C++, it's really C++. Of course, we could argue whether it's very good C++ using STL, exceptions, threads, and so on, or basic C++ class and no inheritance and so on. But it's supposed to stick to reality.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier GCC. What happened was that 10 years ago, you couldn't even compile GCC, it's written in C, you couldn't compile with a C+ compiler. Someone decided that was a very stupid idea, and just to make sure that you don't try it, here are variable names like class, namespace, template, just make sure that it wouldn't work. And that's changed. It took about 10 years to change, and now we have Laurence here, who is leading the effort at Google to make sure that we switch to C++ in GCC for the 8, is that correct?
Well, it'll go into trunk and
Yeah.
it'll take more than one release.
So the transition, now we compile GCC from stage 2 to stage 3 with a C++ compiler so that we get rid of many bugs that shouldn't have been there in the first place, but next release.
Another comment is that I receive very strange contributions sometimes. A colorblind guy dropped me an email telling me that my icons didn't have the right colors, could not make the difference. So he helped me actually design these strange colors that you see because colorblind people can see it. Additionally, I have a correspondent in Ukraine who has translated the page in Ukrainian because there was a lot of interest in Ukraine for this page, and apparently they prefer to read it in Ukrainian. So I don't see these hints, by the way.
More questions? Okay, so I think coffee break.